getting them to not look at doing business as usual. And when you have an industrial process, the industry behind that process typically is very good at whatever that is, whether it's mining for gold, whether it's moving gas from point A to point B, or whether it's creating cement. That's what they do, and that's where they make their money. So when you go to address them and say, we want to capture that waste heat, give you additional revenue, you have to get over the hurdle of, is the amount of money they're going to make from that big enough to get them to not do business as usual, or is there a regulation or changing environment that makes them, more cognizant of that? Our experience on the Northern Border Pipeline was this was a utility that was primarily coal-based, concerned about pending environmental legislation called the Clean Power Plan. And so they saw this as a way to get close to 50 megawatts of additional generation with no emissions that would offset or dilute their current carbon emissions. And that was a big enough motivator for them to put these units in. An individual cement plant or something, it's a little harder because they're not too concerned about the emissions from their one facility, and so that needs to be, how quick is the payback? What's the revenue I'm going to make from that? And a funny story I like to tell about a cement plant is, we closed the contract with them. We were going to put on our unit and to capture this waste heat, and we had to drill a hole through a wall, an old concrete wall. And they said, this cement building is 100 years old. If you drill a hole through that wall, whose responsibility it is if it collapses? And we said, not ours. And they said, well, it's not ours either. So it scuttled the project. Something as simple as, how do we get through a 100-year-old brick wall? And so those are the kind of unknown impediments that you see when you try to go in some of these processes.
But if you look at the general, from your experience, the general ROI on a project for industrial heat power, because that must be.
It needs to be under 5 years.
Yeah, it needs to be under 5 years.
Impediments to doing the project. I think another one for the natural gas industry is, will your process potentially take my natural gas pipeline out of commission? Because if there's any risk of me not being able to move however million metric tons of natural gas from point A to point B, or maybe British thermal units, that risk to them is too high. And so we've had to really try to put in safety valves and check one-way check valves and kind of say there's absolutely no way that can happen. But it's still a hard sales pitch to someone who says, my whole job relies on getting gas from point A to point B. If your process,
how do you prove that?
Well, you have operating units. We can go show them, and we have we are capturing waste heat coming out of an exhaust pipe, and we can show that if something goes amiss with our process, we can not create back pressure and let that exhaust continue through our system with a bypass valve, and nothing will interfere with their existing operations. And it's a lot of hands-on. You take them out to a power plant, you let them see it, and then you have to weigh that we want to build this newfangled thing on your site, and this is what you're going to get from it. And sometimes that's compelling, and sometimes it's not. And sometimes it's the accumulation of all those things. Your ROI, you're going to get this much royalty or this payment. We're going to get it to you this quick. Oh, and your state or the federal government has these regulations that you're going to look like a superstar in. And if you